Life is sweet. Let it sweep you off your feet.
Hi, this is Ali and Find Your Joy, and I'm very happy to be having part two with the fabulous Anita Voth. Anita's been talking to us all about her life in manifesting and adventure travel and business consulting and oh my goodness, so much. And now we're back for part two. Welcome back, Anita.
Thanks, Ellie. It's great to be here again. When I think of like even the NLP aspect, so
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody knows what NLP stands for, but it's neuro linguistic programming. So two things with that. So, even though I grew up in a small, middle income, typical town, typical family, of like middle income family, which was wonderful. Like I feel so blessed for my childhood. There was a part of me right from the beginning that knew I was leaving that. And so like, I saw some of my friends become rebellious and everything. And I never had to because I knew it wasn't for me and I would be leaving. And I appreciate it so much. But as soon as I, hit 19, I moved to France and then I came back and traveled and did all these things. So, I was just trying to think, where was I? Oh, the NLP. So there was a piece of me also that always was longing for personal development because when that I didn't belong there,
Right.
you're looking for something more and trying to understand, even people who do live in the same place their whole life. Some people are wired with this ability or desire to learn, personally develop in some way or
Yes.
another, right? And
Yes.
so, that aspect led me to I took a weekend free course from a company called Peak Potentials. So this is T. Harv Eker. He's written books and he used to be the big guru in the days, probably in the 2000s. He was huge for personal development. So I took a free weekend thing and I'm with my husband and a friend and her husband. And, they have the free thing, but then there's the upsell at the end.
Yes.
Oh, take this course that only costs $3,000 for 5 days, right? And so we were at this event and my girlfriend and I look at each other and we're like, the guys are supposed to take that course, aren't they? It's $3,000 for 5 days. And we're like, yeah. And we would turn to them and like, you guys are supposed to take that course. Like we felt they were supposed to sign up for that. So they did. And it was called Warrior Camp. And it's a camp in Squamish, BC, where for 5 days you do the most insane things that you would never think you would ever do in your life.
Right.
But through it, you're learning and growing. And so they took it and they came back totally changed. And they said, you guys have to go. We can't tell you anything about it because it'll wreck it for you, but you guys need to go. So the year after, her and I went, and oh my goodness, like it was life changing. It was extreme, but totally life changing. And I can't tell you what we did or we have to kill you.
Yes, that's right.
So I don't even know if they do Warrior Camp anymore. But anyway, so, and then I sent my daughter the year after. She was 13 now.
Oh my
And
God.
she was the youngest person, because it's an adult thing. She was the youngest person to ever do Warrior Camp. And in fact, she turned 13 during Warrior Camp. And at that point, my husband had quit his job and gone to work for Peak Potentials because he was just, first he volunteered for like a year and then they hired him to work full time. So he was setting up camps and he was now traveling a lot. Another reason why I needed a job that was flexible.
Yes.
And so, that led to more things. So through him working there, I learned about NLP. And there was something, so this is the manifesting piece and also the patience piece. Sometimes we encounter something in our lives that we know we want. So I knew I wanted to study NLP. But I didn't know, like we didn't have the money for it at the time. I didn't know even who taught NLP. Like, so I got him to through Peaks. I said, can you find who teaches NLP? Where do I go to learn this? And so he found that there was some woman in White Rock, maybe, that did it, but he didn't have a lot of information. And so what I do when you realize it's not for now, so, and this often happens where we want something, or we know something should be in our life, but if we're impatient, we're like, but I want to make it happen because I want it now.
Right.
Instead, we sometimes just need to like hold our hands open and go, that thing should come when it's meant to come, right? And so I knew I wanted to learn NLP, but every way I was looking to make that happen wasn't available to me. So I just kind of parked it to the side. So then fast forward, I don't know how many years, 10 years, maybe. So 2015 or 2015, around there, I ended up taking another kind of little personal development course. It was a 2-day thing in Abbotsford called Sacred Gifts. And so I walk in with Louis, who's now my husband. So change of life there.
Yeah.
Got divorced. And so met this man, Louis, and we decided to take Sacred Gifts together. We walk in and I see this woman. Now, the year before, I had attended some women's event, and there was a multi-speaker kind of a day event in New Westminster. And this woman was speaking, and she said that she taught NLP. And I was like, oh, and this is like maybe 8 years after I first learned of such a thing. And so I got her email address and I emailed her. I'm really interested. I find out she lives in White Rock. So it's probably the same person that I learned about years ago. But anyway, I'd emailed her and didn't hear back. So now 18 months later, I'm at Sacred Gifts and I walk in and there's a woman. She introduced herself to me and I recognized her, but I couldn't place it, because it was out of context. And she told me her name and I said, oh, did you speak at that women's event? She said, yeah. I said, I sent you an email. And then she goes, is your name Anita Voth? And I said, yeah. And she said, I just saw that email 3 days ago. It had gone into her spam folder or something. And 18 months after I sent it, she found it and read it. And then 3 days later, we met at this Sacred Gifts event.
Insert Twilight Zone theme song.
And I said, and she said, we need to meet, don't we? And I said, yes. And so I went to her place and we met. And at that time I was volunteering and working for a nonprofit called Shape Your World Society. And we ran programs for women, empowering women. And so I met with Lynn and we were talking about NLP. And I said, I want you to speak for the women at the nonprofit, which she agreed to. And she said, I haven't taught an NLP practitioner course in a few years. And I was recently thinking I need to get back into teaching that. And I said, well, I want to take it. So she set a date for it around my schedule because I was the first one. And at the time, I still didn't have the money, though, to pay for it because it's, again, like $3,000, right? And it's a 10-day course. And so we set the date anyway. And I discovered there's this BC training grant. Okay, now the sun is shining right on me.
As soon as you started talking about NLP and how things were opening up for you and the training grant, all of a sudden the sun came down. It was glorious.
Well, I have a skylight in my house and it's coming right through. Anyway, so she set the date and I applied to get this BC training grant, which would cover a big bulk of the cost. And it was too late. Like you needed more lead time to apply for the grant. And I said, I can't take it. She ended up having 12 people take the course and I was not in it. So here I am, like 10 years I've wanted this. I manifest destiny, meet Lynn at this thing. And here's the course and I couldn't take it. So she taught it anyway, and I didn't take it. And I thought, you know what? It's just then not the right time for me. And I had to, again, let it go. Well, she ended up setting a second date. And this time I had the lead time. I applied for the grant, I got the grant, and I was able to take the course with her. And because of the waiting, now Louis was able to take it with me. So we took it together. And it has been life-changing for our relationship. And I'm not saying we had a bad relationship, but if you want to start a relationship in the best possible way, communication is like the key, right? And NLP is the study of communication.
Right.
And so for us to start a relationship with taking this course together, like I would say it's been life-changing for our relationship
Wow.
as well. And, you know, so here, like it took 10 years from knowing I wanted this to having it, but it came at the right time because that's when I needed it in my life the
Right,
most.
because if you had taken it earlier, he wouldn't have taken it, it would have been completely different.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe our relationship wouldn't have lasted. I don't know. And
Or
it
maybe
doesn't
it would have been
matter.
more challenging or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter
No.
because I took it when I was meant to take it.
Yes.
And I never gave up on that. I just trusted the universe, God, that it would come to me at the right time. And it did. And I ended up taking then the master practitioner course with her. I ended up taking identity by design course with her. So I've taken 3, and her and her husband are now like very good friends of ours. We spend a lot of time with them socially. And Louis ended up going on to do another coaching program as well, where it was like a university one. And he would come up with these ideas for coaching, and they would be like, where did you learn that? Because that actually works. And he's like, it's NLP. Like,
That's, yeah.
so I absolutely love NLP. And because it is a communications course, it has helped me in all the other work I do, because everything you do is communications, right? Whether you're selling yourself or helping someone else or in a relationship or whatever it is, it's about communicating and understanding how the mind works, right?
Yeah, it's my first experience with NLP, I want to say was in the 80s. I was
Mhm.
going to a counselor at that time, and for, some things that anyways, we were all, as a family, my kids and I were going to this counselor, but she was very much into NLP, Gestalt, all those sorts of
It
things.
started in the 80s, so
Yeah,
that was
she was
really
like,
at the beginning.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it would have, I'm just trying to remember when this would have been. It would have been probably somewhere between 86 and 89, I'm gonna guess, is about the time frame when when we
Yeah.
were going to her. And but it was very interesting to me. And then I knew someone else that was really into it. And how they, sometimes how people do things or how people process it can make it, it's like anything. Religion's awesome too, but it's not if it's something that someone's pushing on you. So then
Yeah.
so I first liked it a lot, and then I met a couple of friends, and I have one friend who's been into it like from the very beginning too, and he taught me so much about, and I love this about, words matter. Like every single word matters.
And we're responsible for the
Yeah,
words that
for
we
every
use.
single, yes. And
Yeah.
then reframing, not just how I say it, but how I listen when someone, like, to
Mhm.
working on all that. And there was just these things and I still haven't taken an NLP course. I feel like I have, because Glenn has immersed me in NLP for our, we've been friends for 25 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And he is, been doing it for, so like, he was already been doing it for, at that time, for 10 years or so.
Right.
And so all that to say, I love NLP. I love how it works. I love it as one of the tools in a toolbox. Like with you have so many tools in your toolbox, and NLP is one of them. I'm
Mhm.
gonna guess that once we do anything, it's sort of like, how would NLP, what it reminds me of is, it's more how you do something than what you do. Now, again, I've not taken these courses. I'm just telling you my experience on the receiving end of being around somebody. It's like deciding to be kind. Then it's just what you do. It's how you do it.
Yeah, and it's how you perceive the world, right? So
Yeah.
it goes to your belief system, your value system. Like it's so, and it is so, often you can go take some course or like you go to some event, some teaching event, and it's cerebral knowledge, right? Like I learned that. And then about 6 weeks later, it's kind of whatever. But with NLP, like it changes you when you get something. And
Yes.
if you're open to it, to being changed or growing, it stays in you. Like you can't not see it anymore. Like a
Yes.
simple thing like when people use the word but. So I can't use the word but, like I can't use the word but anymore because
Mhm.
knowing in someone's brain, and this is an unconscious thing, but if I said to my partner, oh, I really love you, but when you left the dishes in the sink that time, it really bugged me. So when someone says but, the unconscious mind goes, that negates everything you said before it.
Yes.
So if I say I love you, but, or I really like your hair, but right, whatever. If you use the word but, it negates what you said before that. It means nothing. Whatever you said before that means nothing to that person.
Yes. Oh, it's
So
an irritant, actually.
yeah, I mean, so that's not to say there isn't appropriate uses of the word, but if that's what you want, the average person doesn't use it like that though, right? So now I switch everything to and. Like if I say I love you, and when you leave the dishes in the sink, it really, you know what? It's not negated the word I love you.
Yeah.
So just switching some simple things like that is nothing to me to learn to switch that. But knowing what that does to the person I'm talking to. So it's not just because you understand that. Like I'll give you a funny example too. So Louis is a software engineer. Okay. So he's got an extremely linear mind. It's all zeros and ones. And his job is to sort for errors, right? So when you're looking at code, you have to find the errors. So that's his job. So that's the way his mind works. So when we took NLP, he became what Lynn called him the poster child for NLP, because if Louis can change, anybody can change. It's like that, right? So we learned something. So we went for a walk one day in the middle of class, and I was saying, oh, it's such a beautiful day. The sky's blue, the sun's shining. And he goes, well, actually, there's like 2 clouds there. And I'm just like, what? Why do you have to say that? Like, why can't you just say, yeah, but his mind sorts for
Well,
errors.
he
He's
sees
not,
it, and so
he's not trying to be contrary or anything.
yeah,
But when
and he's correct.
and he is correct. The thing is, when he learned what that does to the person you're speaking to, so what it does is, and this happens in a split second, okay? But because I knew him well, I have to go, okay, it's Louis, he's not trying to be, and I have to, like, my mind has to do this mental gymnastics. Okay, it's Louis, he doesn't mean to be this. And then what I do is I fall out of rapport with him for that split second while I do the mental gymnastics. And then I can choose to go back in rapport and go, yeah, isn't it nice? Like I can just ignore and not make a big deal of it. But when he learned that that's what the person has to do, like, do you want to be out of rapport with me? No, he doesn't want to be out of rapport with me. So when he learned that that's what I had to do, and that I had to mentally do this kind of thing to get back in rapport, he doesn't want that to happen.
Right.
And he learned that he can be sorting for errors in his job, but not socially. And he learned how to turn that off in the social setting
Oh,
because he
yeah.
understood what the other person has to go through when he's doing that. But if you just told someone, that really bugs me when you do that, can you stop? yeah, they could choose to stop. It's
Or
like
just
going on a diet without a
criticized at
son.
that point, yeah.
Yeah, but instead he knew what it was doing to me or to someone else who didn't know him well. Might that be enough for them not to like him,
Right,
right? And so that goes back to what you were saying earlier about being responsible for our words.
right.
Doesn't want to be out of rapport with someone, so it's called mismatching. So you say something and they mismatch you by saying something else instead of just going. So now, like, it took him a while, but I could just say, "Oh, you just mismatched me," and then he would be like, "I don't want to do that," and then he would. And after a few weeks, he doesn't rarely. I'll say he rarely mismatches me now.
Right. And I'm kind of, and I'm guessing there's space in there too for someone to just be who they are and
Oh, for
to be able,
sure.
because that's a really good skill that he has, but maybe
Yeah.
it's not a great skill in a social setting when we're just, it's like, I get it. I have, being a person who has multiple things that are not always appropriate running through my head. That's really fine in certain situations.
Yeah.
Others, not so much. It doesn't work. So it is, I like that because it's not asking someone to, I'm not asking myself to change my entire personality. However, if there is, it's like, okay, so I am horribly allergic to anything scented, even very natural things. Even people, people say, oh, but it's an
Essential
essential
oils.
oil,
Yeah.
right? Essential oils are usually the worst for me because they are in their purest form, so they're stronger. So if someone is wearing, like, if I walk by a lavender plant, I'm probably going to have an allergic like I'm probably going to have an asthma attack or
Right.
some kind of asthma reaction, right? Like
Right.
it's like you can, I don't know if you can hear my voice right now. This is just because the lawn was cut yesterday. I mean,
Oh.
that's all that this is. I'm not sick. I'm not, but if it was a lavender plant or lilacs, lilies, it's an L thing with a lot of L plants get me. I don't know why that is.
Yeah.
However, I have friends who really love scented things. When they're around me, they choose to not.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that they do. I mean, I'm still not quite sure that I understand why someone wants their airspace and more, because that's how I see scented products, is someone would like their airspace and then some of mine as well.
Yeah.
So, but that's a whole other story for another day. However, what I see there is when those people give that up for me, that means a lot to me. And because that's something that they enjoy or whatever. And
But it doesn't make them change who they are.
no, not at
It
all. It's
makes them
just,
consider it.
yes, that's right, around that time. And I
Yeah.
would say likely the same thing is if someone understands, well, hey, my husband's 36 years military, okay? So I'm sure the number of times that he has to demilitarize his brain in order to, he's very much like Louis. He can see anything going awry at any time, anywhere, looking for anything that's going to be
Mhm.
what's the threat in the room? What's the threat
Yeah.
anywhere, right?
Yeah.
And I actually quite love that about him. I mean, it's an amazing gift or
Mhm.
training, probably not so much a gift to him. Um, and at the same time, I'm thinking, it's not always fun in a social situation
Yeah.
to have the person that knows about everything that's going wrong in the world because that's their
Well,
job.
one of the 10 kind of main points of NLP, one of them is whoever's the most flexible wins. And this is, I don't mean win like as in winning, losing, but in any situation, it should be win-win, right? So
Yes.
if I can be flexible about your scent issue, why can't I be flexible about how I speak
Yes.
to someone without that meaning I have to give up who I am and change no, I want to win, meaning I want to have rapport with my husband,
Yes.
if possible, at all times. So if I have to go, oh, he's from Quebec, and when I speak like this, he thinks it means this. So I'm going to pick my words differently with him
Oh, yeah,
than with
cultural
someone
and
else.
language. Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but yes, I have to practice that, and I have to be willing to adapt myself. But we often, people think, oh, it's just me. They should know it's just me. Like, yeah, okay, that's great. And if you want to be that way, awesome. But how is that going to get you where you want in life? Is that going to
Right.
help you in that situation get the result that you want? And it could be a result meaning I just want to have a nice conversation with someone. That's a result, right? And if I refuse to use words that that person understands, I'm not going to get that result.
Yeah, yes, exactly. From what you're saying, I'm like, from a purely selfish motive,
Exactly.
if I would like to be able to communicate to you in a way that you understand, that's going to be palatable, because that's to me the big thing. You know, my training is, you know, in counseling and things like that, you know, different ways of communicating. But if I want if I want it to be palatable, so that what I'm about to say to them is, even if might be a hard thing or a challenging thing to hear, but
Mhm.
that it's going to be said in such a way that that person is going to be able to hear it, listen to it, receive it, process it, not feel attacked,
Yeah.
not, you know, like any of those things. Yeah, I think I've been secretly taking NLP. I just didn't know it. Well, I kind
Well,
of
I
do
think
because I'm a
you naturally speak in ways that NLP teaches. Like maybe that's your intuitive side or your counseling side, is because you're trying to get through to people, and so you search for how the best way is to do that, right?
I want to understand people just as
Yeah.
much as I want to be understood. That's the
Right.
thing about me, is that I think a younger me wanted to be understood.
Right.
Um, I was going to say older, a more mature me, but as I age and as I understand and as I learn more,
Yeah.
uh, it's really at least as important to me that I understand what exactly, because sometimes someone says something to me and I know that it's probably reframing or something from NLP, but sometimes people say something and it can sound um I don't know, offensive or rude, or like I don't even have a clue what they're talking about or something. That's why I ask a lot of questions when people are talking to me, because I know what I heard. Now what I want to know is, what were you actually trying to tell me? Because I just want to know if those two things align or not.
And that's total NLP, because NLP is always about being curious, not
Right.
assuming that you know. So
Right.
when someone says something to you, especially when it's like a partner that we just
Yeah.
take for granted, or our kids or whatever, but if you assume you know what they mean, then your mind is making up a story about what that other person just said, and their story about what they just said could be completely different. And
Yes.
so you do that naturally. You're curious. You say, oh, when you said this, what I think what it means to me is this. Is that what you were, like, just being curious about it saves us from so much judgment too, like
Yeah.
it's so easy to judge another person. And even when we feel we know, we only know what we know, but even when we feel we know, so when we're dealing with, say, teenagers or something, if we can somehow switch to being curious, we're right away objective.
Yes.
And when you're objective and your emotions aren't in the way, you can listen better.
That's the other part of it, right? The listening better. It's those little things that if we'd like to communicate well, we choose to give up the right to formulate our next sentence while the other person is speaking. Like we're in some heated debate or in a courtroom battle or something like that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I think. That's how I think, you know, well, I think I'm still capable of being that way in my communication. If all the if everything just falls into place, like if I'm tired or I'm this or I'm that or I'm emotional or I'm feeling passionate about something or something else happened that day, like there's such a big long list that can take us from really listening.
Yeah.
For me anyways, I'm like, I'm just thinking of, and I know she'll be okay with it. I just, the other day, Jess, our daughter, and I were chatting about something, and the conversation wasn't going very well. And I just,
Been there, done that.
and I really wanted her to understand what I was saying.
Yeah.
And so I took a few minutes, and then I thought, I just realized it is way too important to you right now, Allison, that she understands you. So you need to back the bleep up, because so I didn't say the next 4 lines that I thought would really clarify this situation. And instead I just took a few minutes, said a few things that had nothing to do with the conversation we were in, and then went in and said, I don't really like how my part of that conversation went.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm sorry about that, because I could have, that could have gone way better. I don't think I was communicating very well to you what it was I was trying to, and I'd already decided I wasn't going to clarify at that point, because
Yeah.
we just needed to just
Right.
go away and find our way back to each other, not anything else. And then she said, yeah, I don't really like how my part of the conversation went either. I said, yeah, we're still learning, it's, and then just talk about something else. That's the other part that, because I can be like a little with a bone, right? I want to hold on to that and make it work.
If I just say it again, you'll get
Yes,
it.
yes, if I just say this in this way, then you will see. And what does it all come down to? Not just what I'm trying to say, but my correctness in it. And that's just ego, right? That's just insecurity. I want to be heard. I want to be understood. I want.
Mhm.
Well, I can't, I want to take an NLP course. Let's talk
I
about it.
highly recommend it. And it doesn't mean you have to become some practitioner or anything. In fact, the first
No,
level,
it's just life. Half the stuff
yeah,
half the stuff I've studied, I have I've taken programs for 2-3 years
yeah,
and never done that thing. It does, but I'm always doing that thing. That's how I see education of any kind, whether it's for a degree or a diploma, or if it's a certificate, or maybe it's, learning a craft, or there's just a trade, all of these things. Whether I ever use that professionally, I'm using every bit of it.
of course. It's one of those things that, like finance, that should have been taught in high school, right? Like
Yeah.
if we learned, basic financial strategies, what a mortgage is, all those things, what credit card debt looks like, what it actually means,
Yes.
all of that stuff in high school. And then also with NLP, if we learned how to communicate and how the mind works and how to put our ego aside and be curious, and we learned all those things in high school, we'd have different results as we get older, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. And I think it would be really helpful, because not everybody learns that stuff at home.
No, exactly.
And so,
And even if they did, like finances, my parents
yeah,
didn't really teach me, but back then, people were saving 15% of their income, putting it into RSPs, and now we have TFSAs, we have other tools, right?
mhm,
But we don't live in that world anymore where you can have the mom stay home with the kids and still put 15% of your income aside. Like, that's not the world we live in right now.
no.
So at least not in BC.
Yeah, it will. That's it. Preach, sister. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I could just be sitting here talking forever. I so what I if people are listening right now and they would like to, what are the sorts of things that you offer to people if they, because there's so much that you do. you're probably not going to set them, I'm say these things and I don't know that this is correct. You're probably not going to set them up with adventure travel right now.
No, but if they wanted some advice on great places to go, I'm happy to chat with them about that.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So right now, if people, what would be I don't know, I don't want to list a number of things, but what are some of the things that you offer right now that people could contact you and
Well, I'm very happy in kind of the contracts I have now, like working for you. So I'm not really taking on new clients in that aspect of things. I am taking on clients in financial. So if you're from BC, because I'm licensed in BC, then I'm happy to sit down with you, your family, and talk about finances. There's no charge for that, so that's a free service, and I get paid from the industry if and when you ever decide to put something into place. So we have at least 3 meetings before anything even gets written. So happy to offer that. Also with NLP, I don't have any set dates right now, but if you have a group, if there's a group of you that would like, say, my 1-day workshop, Identity by Design, which really talks about how to discover our identity. So similar to what I shared about my mission statement, our identity is something that doesn't change, right? We think it might, like, oh, I'm a mom of 3 kids, and then your kids grow up and move out and you suddenly don't know who you are anymore. That's a big change in people's life. Or you lose the job that you've had your whole life and now you're like, I don't. So career change, kids, all those kind of divorce, those kind of changes in our lives, often we feel we don't know who we are anymore. So Identity by Design really helps you get in touch with your purpose and who you are, no matter what's happening around you, right? So that's something I can offer. It's about a 6-hour workshop. So I can do that for a group. I'm going to be speaking at your retreat coming up in November. It's only for an hour, so it won't be the whole course, but it'll touch on some of those aspects.
I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, so come to Allie's retreat and then you'll get to also hear from me as well. So yeah, and then I can do one-on-one coaching. Again, I don't really advertise that on my website, but I can walk people through if you have an issue that you're going through. I can walk through something called timeline, which I won't go into right now, but releasing kind of negative emotions. I can go through a few different things like that too. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Well, I'm a longtime recipient of the wonder that is you. So I can't say enough about and recommend enough for people to get in touch with you. So if you'd like to get in touch with Anita, all of her contacts will be in the show notes. Anita, thank you so much. I just love every bit of you, and getting to know more about you is just, what a life you've led. My goodness. Yeah, it's like you're a time traveler.
That's the next thing I'll learn.
I know. Oh my gosh, if you do, please tell me, because I live in a fantasy world about time travel. So well, thanks so much, Anita. I really appreciate you. I couldn't get those words out, but that's okay. You spending some time with us and sharing this incredible information with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I love hanging out with you, Allie.
I love hanging out with you too. Well, thanks to the listeners for tuning in. We really appreciate you. And as always, find your joy. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you found a piece of your joy in this episode, I would love to hear about what came up for you so that we can continue to grow the impact of this show. Thanks again. See you soon. And remember, find your joy.